Alrighty ho. Bush stalking. I'm just going to go out and stumble around in the bush for half an hour or so and give you guys the ins and outs of how to shoot a deer in the bush. Now I don't rate my chances of actually shooting one today because the hut is right behind me, and I'm going to save my energy for snorkeling this afternoon, get some more crayfish. So I'm just going to go stumble around in the forest and give you guys a few tips. Alright, tip number one, footwear. My footwear of choice for bush stalking is bare feet. If I'm covering long distances, I'll wear wetsuit booties or good quality wetsuit socks. Alright, essential piece of equipment number two, lighter or something to tell which way the wind is coming from. Essential piece of equipment number three, which I don't actually have, but I've got something that's pretty close, is tissue paper, or better yet, just a piece of towel. Now, piece of towel or tissue paper to wipe your lens with. Tissue paper doesn't work as well because once it gets wet, it holds a lot of moisture and it won't clear the lens. But a piece of towel, a small piece of towel, you can just squeeze it out and clean that water off your lens. This is quite important. There's nothing worse than coming up to a deer in the bush and having water all over your lens and not being able to shoot it. A couple of deer prints going in there. Right, what else can I think of? I'll walk along and come up with some more stuff to tell you guys. Fairly essential piece of equipment is a dog, which I don't actually have at the moment. So I'm just going to go for a walk in the bush and cover bush stalking without a dog. It's not the best place to go bush stalking because there's bloody supplejack everywhere. Which brings me to my next point. Where do you go bush stalking? Obviously somewhere where there's a deer. Now there were some old deer prints just back there, so I'm just going to walk along the edge of the riverbed here and look for a deer trail. And once I find a deer trail that's been recently used with some fresh prints, I'll just follow those prints into the bush. Now you can just stumble through the bush hoping to put a deer up, looking for a needle in a haystack, but if you want to hunt smarter, then you want to walk along the edge of a clearing or up a creek, or just crash through the bush, through the flats, until you come across a deer trail, and then follow that deer trail if there's fresh prints on it. If there's no fresh prints, sometimes a good idea to just follow that trail anyway, and it may intersect with another trail that has fresh prints on it. Right, I found an old deer trail that has heaps of old footprints and also a bunch of fresh footprints. So this tells me that the deer are moving backwards and forwards through this area. So now I'm onto a high traffic area. I reckon they're probably going directly in a beeline down this way, heading up to the ridge to bed down. Now there's a ridge, a bit of high ground ahead of me here. The wind's kind of blowing around in circles at the moment. And just get the lighter out and see which way the wind's going. Okay, if you can't really tell, a good idea is to lift the lighter up and then the flame will blow in the direction of the wind. So the wind's going across now, which is not too bad. If I keep cutting in here, by the time I get to that ridge, hopefully the wind will be heading in my direction. Now there's a northerly front coming in, so I reckon I'm just in a bit of a wind eddy here, and by the time I get to the ridge the wind will be going the other way. I'm just going to follow this trail and see what it's like when I get there. Now this is a high traffic area. As you can see, all these plants have been browsed, but nothing fresh because that's brown and yellow at the tip. I'd expect most of this browse is springtime and possibly winter as well, but we're definitely on a pretty good deer trail here. Not a heck of a lot of fresh footprints, but there is a couple. And as you can see, all of these plants have been browsed all the way through. So we're on to a winner. I'm just going to stay on here and keep on pushing up. It's just starting to rain now, so I may have to head back to camp because my camera doesn't have a waterproof case and I don't actually have a knife with me. So Even if I shoot a deer, I'm still going to have to go all the way back to camp, get the knife, which is only a couple of 100 metres over that way, but I'll push on a little bit further up this ridge anyway, see if we can get some fresh footprints to show you guys. So, pretty fresh, pretty stinky poo. You can see it's oblong shaped. I'll just grab a bit. That tells me it's yearling poo, so it's off a young animal, and it's really fresh next to some fresh footprints. So I'd expect the yearling to be living up this hill somewhere. It may just be travelling through, but if I find some more droppings in the general area or within the next 10-20 metres, then that animal is definitely living close by. So I may just push on a little bit, see if I can stumble across it. Keep checking the wind. Just because the wind was blowing one way down the bottom doesn't mean it's going to be blowing in the same direction once you get up a ridge or around the next corner. Alright, I've just come across a really prominent game trail. It's also a possum run and a deer trail. So that tells me there's a lot of animals moving up and down here. They're still moving up and down, so I'm just going to keep going on up the hill. We're just coming to a bit of a plateau up here, so there may well be a deer bedded down right on top of it. Stag. If you come across an area that has a heap of fresh sign, don't carry that gun on your shoulder, guys. Get it off your shoulder, carry it in hand, get ready for a shot. Make sure your bloody scope is screwed to the lowest setting. As I've been climbing up this ridge, the signs come to a complete halt. So about halfway up here there was a bunch of fresh sign. Sometimes the animals will be living at a certain altitude, so it's quite often a good idea to climb up a hill, keep climbing and walking along, climbing and sidling until you come across a bunch of deer sign, and just sidle along on that face into the wind at that same altitude. And as long as you keep coming across sign at that altitude, you'll eventually hit the animals. So I'm just dropping back down a wee bit more now, and then I'm going to sidle along the side of the hill into the wind so that I can maybe stumble across that yearling that's living here. But once again, I'm not that confident of picking something up because it hasn't rained in about 3 weeks, and there's 2 other sets of boot prints in the area up and down the river flats. So I think any deer in the area would have been pushed up high or pushed over into the next catchment. So I do know there's a yearling hanging around somewhere, but a bit like finding a needle in a haystack if there's just one deer. Check out all the possum sign on this tree. You can see here where the possums have been biting the tree. So these are really fresh bite marks here. If I was going to set a trap, this is the tree I'd be setting it on. Another quite valuable tool to have when you're bush stalking is a map of the area, and even better if you've got a GPS unit with a mapping system on it. You can tell exactly where you are, and using a compass you can navigate your way to likely looking ridges and plateaus, and also find easier ways to come up and down. Now today I don't have a map, I don't have a GPS unit. All I know is that I'm on the side of the hill, the river's down there, the sea's out there, there's a ridge up there, so I'm at a bit of a loss as to which direction to go. It's starting to rain now and I don't have a bag for my camera, so I'm just going to head back on down to the hut and maybe have a nice cup of tea and then go for a snorkel. But yeah, invaluable tool, the old the new GPS units with maps on them. They're really bloody good. And learn how to use them, learn how to choose the go-to marks, and then carry a compass with you so you can navigate to that go-to mark. And also really good to have because you can mark areas that have a lot of fresh rubbings, so ridge lines that have rubbings, and also wallows you'll find, and other high traffic areas for deer. This is quite a high traffic area. There's browse on all of this kia here. You see the kia plants, those kind of flaxy plants that grow on the trees. There's a lot of browse on those, and they've even eaten some of the smaller onga plants in the area, which shows that there's quite a high number of deer travelling through this area, but not many fresh prints right now. Another quite good technique is to cruise along following a stream. The stream will help cover your noise, and deer will quite often use streams to navigate up and down. The track won't always be in the stream bed, it will usually be just up above the stream bed on the bank somewhere. But, a great way to travel. Another really good technique to use when bush hunting is to hunt in the rain. If it's blowing its guts out, you can just stumble around hoping to find the needle in a haystack, but if it's quite wet and there's a gentle breeze, the deer will quite often stink and you can smell them for quite a way off. In fact, quite often if I shoot a deer when it's raining in the wet bush, I'll smell the deer before I see it without a dog. So a wet deer does have quite a distinctive smell, and if you get a mob of deer, 5 or 6 deer, you can quite often smell them from a couple of 100 metres away if the wind's blowing along quite gently. And then it's just a simple case of getting your lighter out, figuring which way the wind's going, and then walking into the wind, and as soon as you stop smelling them, just zigzag backwards and forwards till you pick that scent up again, and you'll eventually stumble onto the mob of deer. I should probably stop talking and keep my eyes open, because chances are I'm going to stumble across a deer soon. Oh, it's been raining all night. It actually pissed down last night and it stopped raining. So I'm going to go for another bush hunting expedition. I'm just going to walk upstream, up this river catchment, and look for a pair of fresh tracks and follow the tracks up into the bush, which is another sometimes effective technique you can use. We have been here for 3 days now, so I'm not expecting a great amount of deer to be in the area, but you never know. There was a yearling up on the hill yesterday. I saw some tracks, so I'm going to have a bit of a look today, and if I come across a bunch of fresh prints in the sand, I can give you a bit of a lowdown on tracking and how to tell the size of the animal, the sex of the animal, what condition the animal's in, and also if it may be carrying a good set of antlers or not, just by looking at its tracks. Seeing as there's not a great deal of deer in the area, that's probably not going to happen today, but if and when I do come across some tracks, I'll let you know what we can tell from that animal by looking at those tracks. We'll put this stony glaze knot through its paces now. It pissed down last night and I just hung the jacket up in a tree in the rain and put it on this morning, and I've got the Stony Creek fleece t-shirt on and the jacket, and I'm fairly warm. I can feel the dampness on my sleeves through the jacket, but I mean, it looks like it's, as you can see, fairly dry already. It stopped raining about 5 o'clock this morning, I guess. That river came right up, but it's dropped enough to cross. So I'm just going to push my way upstream. Fresh rain last night, stopped raining about 4 or 5 in the morning. I walked 4 kilometres up here, not one set of prints. A couple of days ago when we first got here, there were 2 different sets of boot prints walking up the river, so it has had a couple of hunters in here before us, and there has been 3 weeks with no rain, so just goes to show those deer, pretty sensitive creatures. The last thing I want to do is shoot a deer 4 kilometres up here and have to carry it all the way back to camp, so I'm just going to turn around, mosey back on downstream, and maybe go for a walk on the beach to see if there's any prints down there. Hunting in the daylight hours is certainly a damn sight harder if you don't have a good dog. And this is the reason my dog is not with me on this trip. So if anyone out there wants a Vizsla puppy, they will be ready around about 8 weeks from now. So send me an email, kiwibushgear@gmail.com, and I will reserve one of these fantastic hunting dogs for you. Now the bonus of having this dog here is that we can go out, walk up the riverbed. If there's been a deer walking across the clearings, she'll track that deer back up to where it's bedded down and point it out for me. Certainly makes finding the needle in the haystack a lot easier. And I didn't even have to train this dog very much. I just had to train her to stay close, and the different commands, sit, not to get too far ahead, and she automatically just picked up the deer bit all by herself. She's also very adept at pointing flies on shit and pointing at weckers, which is a pain in the ass because she'll go on to full point sometimes, and I'll put one up the spout thinking there's a deer really close and a wecker will pop out. But since I've owned her, I've learned to notice the different changes in her behaviour when she picks up a deer or a wecker or a hare or some other kind of game. She tends to get very excited when she picks up a deer, which is not necessarily a good thing because she sometimes gets so focused on the deer she won't hear my stop whistle and she'll disappear out of sight, and then I've got to guesstimate where she is. There's some 2-day-old deer prints. Nothing fresh though. I'd say this time of year they're probably halfway up the bloody sides of the hills. Use your instincts when you're out hunting there, fellas. If something tells you should slow down, slow down. If you feel like you should look behind you, look behind you. And if you think you want to throw the towel in because it's probably a good idea because there's no deer in the area, by all means throw that towel in. Go back to camp, have a well-earned cup of tea. Or you could push over to the next corner, the next ridge and the next catchment. I guess it depends on how dedicated you are and what time of year it is, what's driving you. Definitely in the raw I wouldn't stop. I'd have my pack on my back and I'd be going and going and going until I couldn't go no more. But it's not the raw. I don't really need meat. I'm on holiday. I'm just going to go for a walk on the beach, try find some greenstone, maybe some cray boys, take some boys home for the boys. Look at that tree. As you can see, there has been a lot of deer on this clearing, but not recently, not this time of year. It's now mid-February, springtime would be the time to catch the deer out in these clearings. Have a look at this. There's some fairly recent shit, maybe a couple of weeks old, 3 weeks old. And my guess is that there's been some hunters in here on holiday and they've pushed all the deer out of the area. And certainly in the right time of year, this place would be crawling with deer. Pretty flavourless, dry. These ones are a little bit better, marginally. They do have a bit more taste to them, but still, you definitely wouldn't want to live in them. You'd probably use more energy picking the berries than you would eating them. As far as eating edible plants in New Zealand, your taste buds are probably a good gauge on whether or not that plant is edible. Mushrooms and fungi is the only things you don't want to mess with. Otherwise, you're pretty safe eating any kind of berry. If it tastes acrid or bitter, spit it out, don't eat it. If it doesn't have much taste at all, or it's slightly sweet, it's probably okay to eat. Now, there's so many different berries that are edible in New Zealand, but there's only a few that are really good tasting. That is the red or the orange and the yellow berries of some plant that's related to a coprosma. I don't actually know the name of the plant. I know what it looks like. I'll look it up on the internet when I get back home. And little subtitles right here. I'll also see if I can rustle up a photo for you. This time of year they start to come right too, just heading into the raw. My advice is go to where the deer are. As you saw just back upstream, there was heaps of deer shit all over the place, but no deer in the area at the time. So if you are hunting an area and you see a lot of old sign, and you know there haven't been people in that area, or you can't see any signs of people having been there for a while, then obviously the deer are not living in that area at that time of year. So think about how old that shit is and what time of year the deer are going to be living in that area, and just mark it in a diary or mark it on a map. A hunting diary is also a really good idea. You can keep a diary and put the map reference in there and just put little notes like deer shit seen, blah blah blah, X amount of year, suspicions that deer are in the area in springtime, or it might be a winter spot, or you could be hunting in the raw and find a whole bunch of pine shit in a certain area. That probably tells you that there's a stag close by. So don't get discouraged, folks. If you're going to an area and there's no deer sign at all, no previous deer sign, don't go back there. Just keep going to new areas until you find more and more sign, and you'll eventually start knocking them over. Having said that, if you do go to a good area that's got a lot of deer sign, try not to make a habit of going back there every time you go hunting, because you won't find any new spots to hunt, and eventually you're going to go there and there's going to be no deer. So hunt often, hunt as regular as you can, get a good dog. Dogs are invaluable when it comes to hunting, shooting deer, finding the deer, maybe tracking hit deer that are wounded and that have disappeared into the bush. And if you do get a dog, you probably want to get two dogs, not just one dog. If you get a dog and he doesn't have a friend or someone to play with, and he's only going hunting, say once a week or once every couple of weeks, the poor bloody dog is going to go stir crazy and he's not going to perform as well in the bush. So different breeds require different needs, but most hunting dogs will benefit greatly by having a partner they can play with at home. You don't have to take both dogs hunting, as long as when he gets home he's got another dog to play with, or a buddy, so to speak. A man can never be truly happy till he has 5 dogs. It's an ancient Chinese proverb. Maybe it's because the wife moves out and leaves man with his dogs, and then he becomes truly happy. Here's a great example of why it's a good idea to carry a GPS. I don't actually have my GPS unit on me, but if I did, I could mark this clearing, and as you can see, someone already knows about the small clearing. There's a deer carcass there, and another deer carcass right here. So someone's come across this clearing one day and nailed 2 deer. There's a whole bunch of old fence posts and netting over there, so obviously there used to be a deer trap in here. But yeah, if I had my GPS, I could mark this, and then next time I was up here, come for a sneaky look in the evening and stake it out. It's a bloody good clearing actually, swamp all around. There's some good humpy hills and some ridges behind me there, so pretty good area to sneak up on a deer. You'll probably find a few more through here too, I think. Just trying to get my bearings so I can find it next to my hair. So if we look on the map, we'll probably recognise that humpy hill there, and then behind us you can't actually see it, but there's another creek intersecting with this one on the other side of the river. So with a bit of luck I'll be able to pinpoint this clearing on the map, look on Google Earth, and transfer those coordinates to my GPS so I can come back here again next time I'm here.